Our mission at IGA is to help each student achieve and tap into their potential through providing girls like me with the opportunities to be in rooms like this. To kick off today's educational and learn session, we would love to have all our panelists introduce themselves. And after you introduce yourself, we have a fun little question for our panelists to answer. So I will pass it off to Chanel if you're able to give a brief introduction about yourself.
Hey, ladies. Thank you all for having me. I am Chanel Ford. I am a risk specialist here at Intuit. I help with fraud and things in that nature to make sure that your accounts are protected. A little bit of background in my personal life. I do media and entertainment here in Atlanta, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chanel. It was great to learn more about you. For our fun little icebreaker question, we are asking that if you had a chance to end one world problem, what would you select and why? For example, if I were to answer this question, I would say, like me personally, inequalities in education, just because I believe that education sets us up as the foundation for our future. So seeing that not everyone gets equal access to education is something that I want to change. So I'll pass it back to Chanel. What would your answer be to this question?
You answered that so good. I think mine would be basic necessities. Anything that will help alleviate pressure off, like healthcare, education, things that people can't do. They can't afford healthcare. I feel like finance is a big problem in this community. A lot of people would be happier if they just had an extra $100 or $200 in their pocket. They can't afford education because they don't have enough funds. So just things that should be free, or should be low cost so people can, experience life how they would. So that's what I would change.
Thank you, Chanel. That is amazing. I would like to pass it over to Kylie now. Same thing, a brief introduction, and then the icebreaker question. If you could end one problem, what would you select and why?
No problem. Hello, everyone. My name is Kylie Ross. I am a people and project manager with TurboTax, which is a subsidiary of Intuit. On my personal time, I am managing my private tax and bookkeeping clients. So, not too much fun, but fun to me. To answer your icebreaker question, I would definitely agree with Chanel on the education piece. Definitely think that graduate education, as soon as you graduate high school, I think that it should certainly be free going to college. And if you want to go into secondary, the higher education, maybe have to pay for that. But definitely your undergraduate 4 years, I do believe that that should be free, allow you to choose the educational path of your choice and not get the rah rah, as I like to call it, but really get raw and deep with technical skills to truly prepare you for those fields in real life.
Thank you, Kylie. I love that response, and it was nice meeting you. I'm going to pass it over to Chelsea now.
Good evening, ladies. I'm Chelsea. I am a customer success manager here at Intuit Mailchimp, which is another subsidiary of the Intuit company. My day to day typically looks like working with clients pretty much all day, meetings, demos, that type of thing. If I could end one world issue, it would likely be the struggles and challenges that women, particularly minority Black and brown women, face in healthcare, especially around childbirth and the support that they receive. I think that that's a number that is increasing when it should be decreasing. It is a growing fear of mine. And so, yeah, that's what I would do. Healthcare should be not only free, as some of my colleagues have mentioned, but we all should get the same level of care and concern. And we notice that that hasn't always been the case.
Thank you, Chelsea. I will now pass it over to Danielle.
Good evening, ladies. I'm Danielle Lucas. I'm one of the managers on our customer success team based in Atlanta as well. And I am going to second what Chelsea said. Being a new mother, I was really deeply invested in the healthcare that we receive as Black and brown people, specifically being a pregnant woman in America, and the fact that our death rate is higher than some underdeveloped countries. And so for me, I think healthcare is at the forefront of a lot of issues in our country, and the inequity in service and level of care across the country is bar none probably something that lies on my heart every day. I see it in my own community. I see it and hear about it with friends across the nation. And so that's something that is near and dear to my heart. So I'm happy to be here, though. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Danielle. That was incredibly insightful. And now I will pass it over to Jess.
Hi everyone, my name is Jess. I'm an internal auditor here at Intuit. My day to day kind of revolves around ensuring that our internal controls over our financial reporting. So that's like our financial statements is going well. I've been at Intuit for a little over a year now. And then in my free time, I like to teach Pilates classes and walk my dog around the park. And then I guess for the icebreaker question, I think one thing that I would try to end or try to better is sustainability. So the importance of our world and the health of the world that we're living in and, future generations will be growing up in is really important. So that's something that I would focus on.
Thank you, Jess. And now for our last panelist, we have Jennifer.
Hey y'all, I'm Jennifer Maley. I've been at Intuit and started out with Mailchimp 3.5 years ago, and I work in what we call the virtual expert platform, which is a fancy way of saying all of the tech that customer facing teams like care and customer success and sales use, anything from phone and chat to their CRM and AI assistants. And I mean, these are all amazing answers. So I'm going to use one of my daughter's projects. She's 10 and a half, and her class has been really working on food desert. And I was aware of food deserts before, but I've been thinking about it a lot more lately. And it really ties into a lot of the systemic problems that come up, just like the basic need of being able to access healthy food and what that means for longevity and a healthy life and outcomes. So I would get rid of food desert, magic wand, that stuff.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to all of our panelists. It was great meeting you and getting to know a little bit more about you. We now have a few questions prepared per panelist, and we just ask that you take no more than 5 minutes to answer these questions so we can get through everyone and make sure we hear everyone's thoughts. I'm going to start off with Chanel, and our first question for you is, what do you consider to be your superpower?
I think my superpower is the ability to network. We live in a time where everything is technology, everything is digital, everything is Wi-Fi connected. So I think we lost the touch of just talking, just having conversations. And it's even to the point where the millennials, the Gen Zs, it was a study showing that people can't even hold 10-minute conversation of, hey, how you doing? So I think my superpower is still with everything going on. I could talk to anybody. I could talk to a person that's 100. I could talk to a kid. I just love talking to people. And I think my superpower is the ability to communicate, network, and honestly go back to, how I grew up with, hey, hello, how are you? I'm Chanel. So I think that's still important today that people need to still work on. So communication skills.
Thank you, and definitely agree with that. Our second question for you is, how do you create boundaries between working your business and at the same time working your full-time role as a risk management specialist?
Honestly, I don't want to say it's hard, but you make time for what you want. I strongly believe that my 9 to 5, which is here at Intuit, is, my main priority. This is my paycheck. This is how things get handled, how we get done, but it's also a passion of mine. I've been working in fraud and risk management for 5 years, but I also have a passion outside of work. I got my bachelor's degree in, which is communications and mass media. So that's something I've always wanted to do and still doing. So I never put that on the back burner. I recently bought a planner. I think I'm at that age where I need to write things down. So it's honestly just time management and knowing what you're passionate about. So writing things down, setting boundaries with friends, family. Hey, I can't do this at 8 because I have a show to do, or hey, I can't do this because I have to write a project, or even making time for friends and family. We only have 24 hours in a day. So I think, just setting boundaries, priorities in order is definitely what helped me balance the two.
Thank you. And for our last question, what steps could a student take to work in risk management, and what advice would you provide along the way for students?
A step that could work in risk management. Well, first we have to have some type of integrity. Working in risk, I'm pretty sure people know someone who social media got hacked, or who somebody bank account, had an account takeover, or somebody ID got lost. And now all of a sudden you have a random mortgage application hitting your credit. So it's having integrity, knowing to do the right thing, and knowing what's wrong and what's right. Steps that you could take. I received my master's in business administration, so education is still a key piece in this as well. I did my master's in business administration and finance. So those are some steps too that you could take, or even if you don't go the educational route, just working with money or working with anything, that requires privacy and things like that could work. So those are the steps that I would take. Like I said, have integrity, educational, finance, business, or working in in a field where risk is a priority.
Thank you, Chanel. We appreciate being able to hear your experience and your advice for students.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to pass it over to Kylie now. Same question as before, Kylie. What would you consider your superpower?
My superpower, I would say, is my behavioral assessment that I've done as an adapter, meaning that pretty much with anyone that I work with, that I have a personal relationship with, be it a friendship, I'm able to adapt to their differences and still work well with them. Very similar to what Chanel was saying, I can definitely hold a conversation with you, make you feel very comfortable, that personability, and while still, sharing any differences. But I would say that that's my superpower.
Thank you. Next, we were wondering, what do you think it means to live for your purpose?
To me, that means not being afraid to start over. What do I mean by that? Great question. So I actually started off going to school for fashion design. Far away, that's miles and miles and eons away from tax preparation and bookkeeping, right? So I thought that I was going to be the next Chanel, the next Michael Kors, all of that. Went to school for it and everything, invested money, invested time, years, all of that, only for me to realize that that was not the path for me, mainly because I was not accepted. So I had to take a step back. Finding my purpose was hard. It was hurtful. It made me cry. It made me have to push my pride aside and go back to my mom's for a little bit. And it made me have to gain courage so that I could just step out and say, I can do this. So, my advice to you as you are finding your purpose is to not be afraid to change it up. Do not be afraid to have multiple. When people say multiple streams of income, it also comes with multiple purposes. Not only am I on the tax side, but I also have a personal health journey that has made me want to get into the fitness and health industry. And yes, I had to go and get certified for that so that I could also help people through their journey. So that's my purpose. Learning how to give myself grace and be multifaceted and not be afraid to say, I'm a multifaceted woman. I do different things and they do not match or line up.
Thank you, Kylie. We love getting to hear about your personal experiences. Our next question is, what motivated you to become a people and project manager?
That's a good question. So, I actually came to TurboTax because I wanted more experience in the tax industry. Starting off as a sole proprietor, you know that you're going to be limited to the level of exposure that you'll get to actually learn, have different scenarios, different customers that are going to bring these complex problems to you for you to solve. And because I truly wanted to learn and be better so that I can be more competitive in the industry, I knew I needed to gain some experience. So I had already used TurboTax before in the past. I knew people that used it, and I actually researched TurboTax online. And so I joined as a seasonal employee. Had no idea I would be here full time, had no idea that I would be a manager, but I started just to gain experience. Once I got here, that was when I realized, oh my gosh, I actually feel like I am making a difference. I feel like I'm actually helping customers be happy and to actually feel like they have control over their finances again, in so many words. So once I started getting to know people here, I also, wanting to use my additional education that I got in management, I wanted to gain experience with managing people and projects because I knew that with all that I've gone through in life from multiple jobs that I've had dealing with management or management at that, I wanted to be better and afford other people a better leader, a better way of leading and following so that they can also learn and be better. And that was just my drive behind it. So I really focused on gaining the experience. I got mentors involved. And again, I fell back on that education I had gotten with my master's in management, used those skills, used my sales skills that I have as well. And I started influencing, and I'm loving it.
Thank you. And I think you referenced this already, but along like with the mentors and having to go into fashion design, but then scrapping that completely. But what were some of the steps that you took to get to this place you are at now?
The steps I took was I actually started with the IRS. I had my own situation when I started my company, my fitness company first, where I was audited, very scary, could not get any help. And so I worked directly with the IRS, and this was before COVID. So I was actually able to get in touch with someone. They were able to hold my hand and walk me through it. And after then, I started doing more research online, kind of better understanding my own taxes and those factors that go into it. And I had a good friend that was a tax professional. So I networked with her, grew a closer relationship with her, and she actually brought me on board to her firm and officially trained me. But then I also stayed in touch with the IRS and I go to their forum every year. I worked on getting credentialed, all of that good stuff. So it was a gradual but swift change.
Thank you, Kylie. We love hearing about your journey. I will now pass it over to Chelsea. And our first question for you is, what do you consider to be your superpower?
I believe my superpower is probably the ability to show empathy in situations that don't necessarily always warrant it. I work in a customer facing role, so I'm always dealing with customers that are happy, that are mad, that find themselves feeling a bunch of different ways. And a lot of times they are due to things that are out of my wheelhouse. And so I try to find understanding with all of my customers that they may be frustrated and they may be misplacing that, but that's not the customer's fault, right? They're just frustrated that this thing happened and they're just looking for someone to understand, to show them support, to help them navigate the situation. And when you're working in a customer facing role, a lot of times you have to put aside your personal feelings and things of that nature to just really be there and show up for your customers because that's really all they want, especially in the CS role. They just really want someone to listen, to understand, and to help them find a solution. And so I try to lead every day with grace and empathy, even in situations where I'm just like, I feel so defeated. This isn't something that I have control over or something that I can even directly fix, but I always just try my best to help them find a solution and just, again, understanding and grace when it comes to my clients.
Thank you. And kind of piggybacking off that question, how do you celebrate unity professionally and personally?
That's a really great question. Thank you for asking this. I think professionally and personally, I try and show up very similarly. One is being intentional about being understanding, like I just mentioned, and also being understanding with people with differences. You're going to work with a ton of different people. Some of them you may come from similar backgrounds, some of them you may not. I think it's important to create space to allow people to show up exactly how they are and feel comfortable. I think unity is about being intentional about collaboration, working with those people, making them feel included, welcoming different ideas, welcoming different thought processes. I try my best to be as open to different opinions, different lifestyles, whatever the case may be, as I can, so that everyone who comes into contact with me feels included. And so I try and show up that way, both professionally and personally.
Thank you. And our last question for you is, what steps would you provide to students who would like to apply for customer success roles? And what steps did you yourself take to get here?
I'm going to answer that question backwards because I think the context will help you understand some of the steps that I had to take to get here. I always thought that I was going to work in government. I have an undergraduate degree in criminal justice, a master's in public policy, and I just always knew that I would be somewhere in DC, hopefully the next Olivia Pope. I hope you all know who she is. But I finished grad school and I took an internship in DC, and it was one of the worst experiences that you could imagine for an internship. And so when I left that internship, very similar to what Kylie mentioned earlier, I had to pivot and figure out what life was going to look like moving forward. So I hit LinkedIn and Indeed and did a bunch of searching for jobs that allowed me to show up in a couple different ways. I love to talk, I love to teach, I love to engage with other people, and I wasn't sure what other roles or what roles were available that aligned with that. And so as I started to do my research, I started seeing things that were, sales based, right? Interacting with customers, showing them demos. And so once I found the names of those types of roles, those are the things I started to apply to because I knew they were something that I would enjoy. In sales, CS, you'll hear a lot about like soft skills, which are things like active listening, time management, problem solving, all of those different things. And the more I started to research those roles, I started to see these keywords pop up and they resonated with me. All things that I either thought that I was good at or things that I wanted to be better at. And I wanted my role to align with that. And so I really did a lot of research to find a role that I thought I would enjoy, one, and then I started to apply for them and reach out to people that I knew in the industry or even people I didn't know in the industry, sending them messages on LinkedIn, just trying to find someone who would speak to me about what it looked like. And then I ended up getting a role as a business development rep, which is kind of the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to tech sales. You're doing a lot of things like calling customers and trying to get them to talk to you. And it was awful. I hated it. And I kept telling myself, you already pivoted once. You need to find something in this job that you can enjoy until you can either figure out another pivot or move somewhere else. And I found the joy in talking to customers. And so I made that basically my entire personality. I needed to talk to as many customers a day or a week as I could to make everything else not weigh as heavy. And then I found my stride. I loved it moving forward once I kind of figured out where I fit in the sales org and then worked my way up from there. So steps I would take is one, researching sales and CS, customer success, and really understanding what the role pertains to and what the role requires to make sure that it's something that you want to do. And then reaching out to people that you can find, networking, like Chanel mentioned earlier, so that you can get some first person experience and they can tell you like how they navigate it, and then putting out your resume and finding the role that fits best for you.
Thank you, Chelsea. I do have to say it's quite comforting to know that multiple panelists have made these changes and are now happy with what they're doing. And it's comforting as someone that's about to enter her college life. But I would now like to pass it over to Danielle. And my question for you is, what is your superpower?
Yeah, this was a tough one, but I think I narrowed it down to my versatility. I think in life, you're going to be thrown curveballs. You're going to be put in spaces that make you a bit uncomfortable or have to stretch in rooms that you didn't think that you were ready for. And so I think by allowing myself to be able to adapt very quickly to different environments or different people or different surroundings while wearing multiple hats has made it easier for me to shift between roles. Because a couple years back, I was in Chelsea's seat and was a CSM and IC with the hopes and dreams of getting to becoming a people manager. And so it's also allowed for me to speak to my direct reports in a way that I don't think other managers somewhat get because I've been in their shoes before. So I have the empathy with that role, but I can also speak in rooms that have VPs and that have CEOs. And it's just a great quality to have. It allows me to stay very grounded and make very meaningful and thoughtful decisions as it pertains to working and meeting new people and not really losing sight of the larger picture.
Thank you, Danielle. Next, we were wondering, what do service and community mean to you?
Great question. Service and community are something that I hold very near and dear to my heart and the way that I hopefully lead, but also live my life. I think for me, service is not just about giving back. It's about showing up on a consistent basis and, using my skills that I've been blessed with to try and uplift as many people as possible and creating space for those who aren't always the loudest in the room, to be honest. And so for me, I think that also intertwines with community. Honestly, you can't get anything done in this world without having some type of community. I think I learned that not only professionally, but also personally. The last 2 years, I wouldn't be able to have probably shown up and been the working mom that I am without the wonderful support that I have from friends, colleagues who are in the same boat as me. And so I think community to me means belonging, means support in a world that can be rather lonely, I think, at most times. And so the saying is it takes a village, and it's not only pertaining to raising children. It takes a village really to survive. And especially in this day and age when, a lot of things are being taken away from us and you don't really feel like you see a lot of the people that look like you in places that you want to be and want to get to. And so I think, as long as we lean on one another, we can only go even further. So it's really about having that support system and making sure that you are truly surrounding yourself with people that make you want to be better and make you want to give back and pour as much into you as you do into them.
Thank you. And I think you referenced this a little bit, but how do you balance running your business while also being in leadership?
Yeah, another great question. And I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult. I started my baking business, Joe's Confections, in 2021. It was in a time when a lot of us were trying to find our purpose, like Kylie said, and really digging into why am I here and what makes me happy. And for me, that was baking. But I knew that baking wasn't going to be able to, or at least I wasn't going to be able to sustain the life that I needed in the moment to just fully give way to that. So I made it a point to actually intentionally look for a company that shared that support. And I was lucky enough to find Mailchimp, which in and of itself deals with small businesses, but then also a wide variety of people that not only do their 9 to 5, but then have a 5 to 9. For me, it made complete sense. It was almost, it was like synergy once I found the role. And so now for me, it's a balance of, I have to make sure that I have clear priorities because I do have to do my 9 to 5 and make sure I'm doing it well. So I need to have my priorities set. I need to have my boundaries, but I also need to allow myself some grace. So sometimes early on, I'd be upset with myself because, oh, I worked my 9 to 5, but didn't give any hours towards Joe's Confections that night. And baking, you're not only coming up with recipes and testing, and it's a lot of time that goes into, I do a lot of customized cakes. And so the work and detail that goes into that is rather time consuming. And so I had to make sure that I was not beating myself down. And so I make sure that I structure my time, and especially with having an almost 2 year old, having a 9 to 5, and then also having my side business, I want to make sure that my time is spent and spent well. When I'm dedicating time to MailChimp, that is it, obviously, during the day. I set out blocks for the night as well as weekends where I have time strictly devoted to Joe's Confections, where I can be a bit more creative. And I think that's also kind of played a part in my management style as well. They kind of work one in the same because I learn a lot being in business by myself, and I can take those learnings and kind of interject them in the way that I talk and hopefully coach my team. But it's also about asking for help. A lot of times I'm very prideful. And so when I do things, I don't really like asking for help, and I like volunteering for things, even though when I don't have the time to do so. So it really was some self reflection around, hey, how much can you actually do? And then how much can you do for yourself versus saying, okay, let me delegate this in the right way. It just is all about really being purposeful with your time and what matters and making sure you're present.
Thank you, Danielle. It was great to see how you're able to find success in all your endeavors and how they kind of intertwine with each other to influence each other. But now I'd like to pass it over to Jess. And same question, what do you consider to be your superpower?
I think my superpower might be like my attention to detail. No matter like what I'm doing, whether I'm like organizing a family trip or, even just like applying it to my job. I think my attention to detail is something that I'm always focusing on. I'm always focusing on the nitty-gritty, getting in the weeds of things. And I like with my job, sometimes it's kind of looking for a missing puzzle piece to a puzzle. So the attention to detail can be very useful in my job as well. So yeah, I'd say that was my superpower.
Thank you. And our next question is, what advice do you provide to the next generation of leaders that are looking to secure a tech role or getting into the current space that they're in?
Yeah, I would say just going in with like a curiosity and growth mindset, especially in the tech space, like things are constantly evolving nowadays. So, really just feeling free to, explore on your own and figuring out things on your own, asking questions to mentors, really just trying to go in with like a day one mindset each time, trying to learn something new. A lot of times there are people who are like older who are also learning the same things you're learning at the same time. So like I wouldn't be discouraged that, someone might have more experience than you in something because spaces are constantly evolving. So you might know as much as the next person. And I think another thing that's important is just mentorship. So finding someone in that space who can really help answer any question, maybe connect you with other people who can provide some guiding and some information into like what you're interested in. I think my mentors in college and even now have really helped me to get to where I am. So I would say mentorship, networking is all very important.
Thank you, Jess. And our last question for you is, how do you balance working your full time role while also co-leading a site for Atlanta's Next Generation Network?
Yeah, I would say, I think the community is helpful, like very grateful. I'm not really leading it by myself. I have another co-site leader and we also have other volunteers who help to organize activities. So I would say, really relying on your community, the other people around you definitely helps you to stay organized, helps you to time manage yourself as well. And I would say just like making boundaries. So, obviously I need to get my day-to-day work done first, but my team's well aware, like I'm very communicative about my other priorities going on. So I think just being very open with your team, with other people who are managing you about your priorities, what you want and your goals and, your career can be very helpful because they'll allow you to have that time to pursue those things.
Thank you, Jess. We appreciate all those responses. And for our last panelist, we have Jennifer. Once again, our first question is, what is your superpower?
Okay, and first I want to say, like, your superpower is running a really amazing, like, schedule. This is, like, one of the most productive and on-time meetings I've had all day, so thank you. Uh, but I think my superpower is kind of a blend of a few that people have mentioned. It's communications and also relationships. I am naturally an introvert, like I'm a functioning introvert, but it took a lot for me to really be intentional about building my community, especially everybody is so busy. So what am I asking of other people in a relationship and what am I bringing to that relationship? Being mindful of that. So I think that that's a big one. And what I found is, again, like Danielle said, village is an understatement. Like it could take a whole country, like to get up in the morning and come to work and then finish the day and go back to bed. So I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for these amazing women that I get to work with and that I've gotten to know today. So thanks everybody for being here. I think that that's it. That's what kind of gives us our unique advantage as women too. I think that we have a lot of nature versus nurture out there, but I'm just saying, like, when women are in charge of something, it has a tendency to be very efficient and successful and also empathetic.
Thank you, Jennifer. And our second question for you is, how do you incorporate community with all the different hats that you wear for the community?
In addition to being a recovering introvert, which I think sometimes is its own superpower, so I don't want to dismiss it, but I also am a recovering kind of type A, organized. I'm going to do it all myself and not bother anyone else. It's not that I in any way am not humble. It's that, like, I don't want to bother anyone. So I'm going to just take on everything. And I spent my 20s and 30s doing a lot of that. And the later I got into my 30s and now in my early 40s, it's a waste of your own potential because you're burning yourself out and you're running in 1,000 different directions. And there are some things that everybody's really good at and really strong at. And like, if you're trying to do everything else, you're leaving your real strengths on the table and you're also not giving other people the opportunity to show theirs. So if you're not asking for help, if you're not seeing if somebody is interested in a role on like a volunteer plan or in a group or work or school, kind of taking that opportunity away from them too, and also not giving you a chance to get better. So in terms of building community, I think it's like recognizing that everybody has something to bring and we're only stronger when we have multiple perspectives.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We loved your responses. And a big thank you to all of our panelists. It was an invaluable experience getting to hear from all of you, getting to hear your experiences, and being able to share it with us. And with this, I would like to close out our panel. Thank you again to all of our panelists. I can't begin to explain how incredible it was being able to talk to you, being able to see your experiences, and kind of understand what it is like in your fields. So thank you all again. I hope you have a great night, and hopefully we can talk to each other again soon.